Hello everyone, it is Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, including the stuff from Vivid Voltage, make sure you go ahead and check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code Omnipoke. For today's video, we are going to be reviewing the set review of Vivid Voltage. We've come to the end of this format and we are raring to go with the Battle Styles content coming onto the channel very soon. And if you guys actually want to help out with that Battle Styles set review, you can actually follow the link in the description below to give us your thoughts on the best cards, because it's not only our opinions that we take into account, we also show off the community's general response to these cards. And today we're going to be looking at what we got right, what we got wrong, and what might be changing post Battle Styles format now as well, that we have all of those cards, as well as the new handful of cards, I guess you could say, from Shining Fates, which has just dropped today. So let's jump straight into it. Quick review of the ratings. Obviously, this isn't just like in a vacuum, how good are these? It's completely based on how much play they will see in the standard format. So 1 is something of interest but unlikely to see played. 2 has a lot of potential for experimentation, no obvious sort of homes for the card. 3-star cards are promising to be included in lower tier archetypes, or could have a big part in a new archetype that's below top tier. 4-star cards will certainly see play, and they will have a notable impact on new decks or when adapting current archetypes. And 5-star cards are the best you can get, a key player in a top tier archetype, or a card which will see play across a number of decks as a staple. So let's jump into it. First of all, Alistair, we rated 2 stars, and we need to drop it down to 1. It has no purpose in the game right now with the strength of the other supporters that are in the game. I do think it was always going to be a speculative, like experimental card just with Mad Party, which actually has seen an uptick in play in this format eventually, thanks to the help of Giovanni's Exile builds, and potentially thanks to the fact that we've had some ADP-less tournaments as well going on online. But in general, I think we've had plenty of discard fodder type supporters, and it's got some stiff competition, so down to that 1 star. B, 1 star, correct. The community a little bit rating this a little bit higher. Obviously not good enough to go into Colossal. We never saw a straight like Galarian Surfetched build that was trying to get all those attachments either. So this was just a spiritual reprint of End Resolve and had pretty much just as much impact in the format. Beauty, obvious 1 star, everyone saw that one coming. Caralis, you guys would have rated 1 star, I hope, and we certainly did. Sees no play. League Staff, obvious 1 star all round. Leon, we rated 3 stars, and the community were a bit higher on that sort of scale. Overall, it's actually found its home mostly in ADP, just as a one-off potentially. There has been a number of Pikaroms as of late that have been weaving in 1 copy of Leon as well to decent success in Players' Cup tournament runs. So some credit given to it there. I do think it's still not expected to be in any of the top tier contenders, so we're going to keep it at that 3-star rating for being that sort of out-of-the-box one-of card that sometimes makes it into decks. Going forward, do I think that'll change much? I actually think Leon could see play in a Rusty Sword build of Zacian, which has no ADP and just tries to go all in on Zacian, now that Shining Fates has brought us that Rusted Sword, which just is pretty much a Leon-style effect exactly for Zacian in a tool, but stacking that on top means that Zacian goes from 260 to 290, which is knocking out all Tag Team GX Pokemon. So yeah, Leon could start seeing more play in a swordy aggro Zacian type thing going forward. Outside of that, new cards from Battle Styles. Don't necessarily think Leon is going to be important for many of those decks. Off the top of my head, I think most of the fighting dudes, the Urshis, if they want to have damage mod, I think they'd go more towards Dojo than Leon, probably. So I think it's probably only the Swordization that's going to change Leon's perspective. At the moment, he's still that questionable one-of in a handful of archetypes. Nessa, we rated 3 stars. Pikarom did way, way better than anticipated in this format. I think there was that fear of Colossal, but obviously Pikarom adapts and survives and continues and strives forward. It's the ongoing protagonist of this format. It will have to rotate before it goes, trust me. It's going to keep on being played for sure. So yeah, all the sort of hope that we had, the crevice that was being carved out for water, never really happened because Colossal didn't stamp out the lightning stuff, therefore there was no entry point for Inteleon or Wailord. Actually, Pikarom just kicked on more and more throughout this format, so we will drop Nessa down to the 1 star, because even then it's speculative whether it was worth it in Inteleon or Wailord. Going forward, there's only very niche rogue water stuff going forward. Like, I think there's a Kingdra archetype from Battle Styles that will probably need Nessa to maintain a chain of Kingdras, but that will be very rogue and probably quite bad. So, teetering around that 1 to 2 kind of rating, I would say. Unfortunate, because again, the card is very, very strong in that vacuum, but there's no home for water stuff right now. And even in Battle Styles meta with 2 Urshifu VMAXs roaming around, I think the 2 Mewtwo that is going to be mained in Pikarom still keeps it there, still keeps it involved, still keeps it able to win games, I think. So, yeah, there's still not going to be a huge place for water, I don't think. Opal, I gave the 1 star, and it actually saw a sort of flash in the pan with a Sander control build that was using Surge and Will, and then you could use Opal to guarantee those heads flips, and then you get to choose any 2 cards straight out of your deck and instantly grab them. Oftentimes it was 2 Crushing Hammers that would then instantly hit heads because of the Will. So, yeah, that was an interesting sort of flash in the pan. Outside of that, obviously seen no play, so maybe 2 for the experimentation. I think even Sanders' Players Cup 3 list does no longer play Opal, so it was cut from the list that he played for the majority of his tournament tickets. So yeah, we'll keep it around that 2 to 1 star. Not much really changes, and as more supporters come into this format, there's less and less reason to play Opal for that situational card kind of option. On the flip side, we do get some better special energies, and I think one of the niches that Opal fits right now is that it can search out special energy cards, some really good special energy, and the Rapid Strike energy is super duper powerful. The good news is I think we have enough draw power, and we already have tutoring from Octillery to get those out anyway, that you don't need Opal, but just something to bear in mind as special energies get printed, it slowly creeps up the power of Opal because it's one of the only supporters alongside Red's Challenge that can get those sorts of cards. Drone Rotom, 1 star, yes, not a good enough card for even the controlling based archetypes. Mumuchi is not enough heal. Heroes Medal, obviously terrible. Community were a bit higher on it. Some people giving it 4 and 5 star treatment, but no, you don't want to do that. Memory Capsule, again, overrated by the community. I think the majority of people rating it high were thinking that it would have slotted into things like Donphan. Again, there was hope that Donphan would have been a stronger option into that Pikarom matchup, and maybe like one of the ways that we could start seeing less play for Pikarom, but no, Donphan wasn't strong enough to stand up on its own 2 feet in the other matchups that are out there, and even against Pikarom, I think looking at the Dino data, it was only like 60-40 against Pika, so you can still certainly lose that as Donphan, so yeah, Capsule not having much hope right now. Rocky Helmet is going to be that 1 star, not enough impact, and it's not proactive, it's retroactive. There's also better tools coming out in battle styles, so there's things like EXP Share that this has to compete with now. There's also the tool Jammer, I think it's called, that can deactivate tools, so even more competition, reason for Helmet to not see play. Telescopic Scope, we rated 3 stars. Community was even higher on this card for the most part, and it's actually ended up seeing no play in the format. Incredibly, a choice band for the bench just doesn't have enough targets right now, and not enough good attackers to take advantage of that. We did note that it does compete with Scoop Up Net Zigzagoon, which was something to bear in mind, and that potentially enough Mew in the format would push out telescopic style decks in the format. But really it was just Pikarom, kept Inteleon at bay and Salamence at bay at the same time. Cramorant was only in the Welder decks that never really had the space for telescopic sight or could justifiably like get it at the right moment, although it is decent. So the Fire decks continue to play Zigzagoon, Scoop Up Net as a more versatile way to manipulate damage, and the Water deck and or the Water decks and Salamence all fell at the wayside. So we will drop Telescopic Sight to 2 stars, knowing full well that there's an Urshifu VMAX, the Rapid Striker, that can do 220 damage potential snipes if you want them to be on the bench. Personally, I don't think Telescopic Sight will be the tool that Urshifu chooses to play. I believe it's more than likely just going to be playing Air Balloon as like its only tool. There is the potential for Karate Belt and Telescopic Sight to both be in the deck though, so maybe some hope for Telescopic in the future. Heroes Bath, we rated 3 stars. The thing I oversold about this was its utility in Luke Metal, when in reality you can't put this into play against ADP when you're Luke Metal, because then you can't kill opposing Zacians. So it basically made it unusable in a ton of situations. Also, the format was very swell heavy as the meta developed, so we'll drop this all the way down to 1 star, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. It's also quite defensive and not proactive again. So yeah, some of the traits of a card that's not going to be doing too great. Wyndon Stadium, obvious one. That won't be changing too much. Just because regular V hit points are so easy to reach for other attacking decks. It's only really these one prize decks that try and do like a poke into another poke the following turn to finish off VMAXs, so still too niche. Aromatic Grass Energy, we rated 1 star. This was actually quite grossly underrated because we didn't have Decidueye on the slide, and it was exactly Decidueye that wanted to play this so you could get around some annoying status conditions. Most notably, Eternatus's way around Decidueye was Slowbro, Garb, and just Toxicroaks all over the board, and basically just retreating around and waiting for poison to tick through things. So Aromatic made its way into what is probably around, it's like low tier 2 or high tier 3. So we'll bump it up to 3-star rating for being important enough in Decidueye to mainline this card. It also did find its way into Orbeetle, which isn't the best deck, but it does see some online play as well. So again, around that sort of tier 3 type deck that we're talking about here, and it does feature in that list as well. Coating Metal Energy, 4 stars, very reasonable. It did not make its way into ADP, which was pretty obvious, and it's only really featuring in Lucario Melmetal, which is kind of a 1.5 deck right now. Don't think it's good enough to call this a 5-star, because there are still builds of Luke Metal which choose not to play the Coating Metal Energy, just so that they are not getting done by Giratina, and they're not getting done by like Dangerous Drill, and they just have higher odds of hitting energies off Intrepid Sword. So there's still a bit of a divide. Most people are leaning on the Coating Metal Energy these days, but there are still some Luke Metals out there that choose not to play it. Going forward, there is a new way of playing Luke Metal potentially post Battle Styles. That's going to be the Corviknight VMAX deck, so they will definitely be playing Coating Metal Energies, so that's probably not going to change. And also now Swordy Turbozations can play pure Metal Energies, but Coatings can then take the slots that the Water Energies were filling in ADP as well. So Coating has a couple new homes going forward, so maybe could be pushing towards that 5 category, just because of the amount of different Zacian variants out there now is growing, essentially. Stone Fighting Energy, we rated 3 stars. I do think this is the hard carry for Colossal. I think it's one of the only reasons why it has worked its way slowly to being towards that high tier 2 category. I want to say with Colossal, it's within the top 10 decks performing wise right now, just about. Some weeks it dips in and out, but I think across the format, it's stayed just within that top 10 ranking. And I think the Stone Energy is a big reason why. You make a huge wall with buff padding on top. So yeah, I think it is worth its 3-star rating, and I think this card has a ton more opportunity to see a lot more play, thanks to both Rapid and Single Strike Urshifu being fighting types that want to get themselves out of Zacian range for one thing, and just want to have extra defense against other things. Now, I know there's a ton of different ways you might be accelerating Rapid Strike Urshi, because, you know, it's welder usable. It's also got Tapu Koko Prism Star Synergy. It's just got straight like basic energy cards if you're worried about the Billowing Fan being a card. So there's some reasons to be worried about Stone Fighting. And on the flip side, for the Single Strike list, they may want to have a number of basic energies just so that they can use Laser Focus with the Urshifu V before it VMAXes. So the Stone Fighting may only be a small part player in both Urshi decks, but still worth mentioning. So you could even see this raising up to like a 4-star kind of range post-battle styles. Splash Water Energy, obvious 1-star. Obviously, it helps that the water decks didn't see play, but most water decks are trying to be moth-based, and that's not going to change too much going forward. So yeah, still at 1-star. We move on to the Pokemon now. Beedrill, obvious 1-star. Celebi, obvious 1-star. Ninja Shedinja, obvious 1-stars. Orbeetle VMAX, we rated 2 stars. I still believe this is towards the sort of tier 3 to rogue category. A big spotlight is put on it in these no ADP tournaments, but if you actually look at the format pre the no ADP tournaments, this was doing really, really poorly. So I think 2, 3 in the most generous sense is where you could put this star-wise. It was always going to be 2 for experimentation because of just how cool the ability is, the Eerie Beam is now that it's been translated, with just Snorlaxes and Dolls and that sort of stuff. I think it's also benefited from just less ADP in the format in general compared to the start of this meta. So it started to creep up in play to maybe being like a tier 3 deck, but I still kind of see this as rogue, and I still wouldn't expect it to see a huge amount of play like for Players' Cup or anything like that, because still just has all those same issues of being bad against ADP, bad against Luke Metal, bad against some fire decks. Obviously it did play Weak Guard Energy, but there was periods where fire decks were playing Giratina anyway. So yeah, still pretty rogue for me. I think 2 is a fair rating. Going forward, there's not much new that I see from styles that makes me excited for Orbeetle. Potentially could be a synergistic card with Rapid Strike Urshifu, just because it has some bench manipulation in terms of damage that you can increase. But I think there's probably better partners that you could have for Rapid Strike. So yeah, staying at that 2-star range. Shiftry, pretty obvious. Zarude, we rated 2 stars. And it's actually didn't see play in either of these VMAX style archetypes. Still the best grass performer is just the Eggrow and Rillaboom combo, sometimes with Mewtwo, sometimes just with like doubles and stuff like that. And Zarude doesn't fit that sort of package, so we will bump him down to 1 star, still lower than the community on our end. But yeah, the damage isn't enough presence in the early turns, and your openings for grass is looking towards Eggrow instead, unfortunately. Charizard, we rated 3 stars. This can be bumped all the way down to 1 star, I think, because the experimentation period was like the first month of ladder maybe, and then it's been like off the face as 1 prize stuff. Unfortunate, very glamorous, very flashy card, and it's cool to see how much they can push cards and still be terrible. I think it just shows you just how disadvantageous it is to be a stage 2 in the game right now. So yeah, sorry Charizard, you were extremely glamorous, insane damage cap, great typing, great ability, and you're still just a stage 2. My bad, dude. 1 star for you. Flareon, yes, we don't care enough about grass abilities to tech exactly for grass types. Same thing for all the other ones we'll talk about later. Talonflame V, we rated 3 stars, and it was the reason why we didn't rate this higher was just because like we kind of just shrugged and said, where's the home for this card? And that's been the case the entire time. I think the only time you've seen Talonflame in and out of lists has been Center Scorch. So I think it's reasonable to drop this down to like a 2 to 3 star rating, just based on being like that maybe in Center Scorch. Now, I was trying to look at some of the data on how many games people actually played with Talonflame in Senti, and I think there was a ton of early tournaments in Limitless where Talonflame was like in the winning list of Center Scorch, so its win rate is actually quite high when you look at the raw figures. So it's technically, or like it's officially not a bad card in Talonflame, but as decks have moved on, people have cut it. So what does that tell you? You know, so between that 3 and 2 star, going forward, is there much that changes the Talonflame? I don't think so. It's still just so expensive. Like anything that attacks an energy is such a problem in this format because there's hammers running around. So you always want, like, first of all, you want to be attaching to your main thing like over and over again, just because like VMAXs and all that sort of stuff. So you already write off a ton of decks just because you can't spend an attachment onto Talonflame without having like E-Switch naturally in your deck, which is already on the slide. And even then there's like hammers and stuff like that. So anytime you go behind an attachment, you just lose the game at this point. So yeah, it's hard to see where Talonflame fits in, despite being a very efficient free retreating fire type, which is like ticking a ton of boxes, and still we're going to put it down to 2 for experimentation, more than likely. Barrascuda, 1 star. I don't know why I believed in the Cramorant. I should have just thought about it and played like a handful of games with the Cramorant on tabletop and known that this was terrible. The thing that baited me was just Esper Kinesis and seeing that this could have been like a 1-1 line in Water decks. So it doesn't help that Water decks did trash and Orbeetle went down a different prize denial route than like a pure aggro route, which eventually does make sense. But yeah, Water flopped, Barrascuda wasn't worth that sort of tech include, and the Cramorant deck was obviously meme garbage, which I should have rated 1 star to begin with. But surprisingly, not many people actually went with that 1 star, and some people even rated it higher, so yeah, we were believers. But I don't think I even saw this on the ladder. I played it for like a day and then left it for the rest of the format. Galarian Darmanitan V and VMAX. Had some fun experimentation. I've hit on the key points all on the slide there, what sort of deck you were going to try and build. The weakness to metal is always going to be a hindrance, so we'll keep it at that 1 star. Vaporeon, obvious 1 star. Wailord, obvious 1 star. More obvious now that we know that it was hard to be a Frostmoth deck in the format. Even a 1 prize one that's less worried about like being hit for weakness This one specifically is trying to tank and stay out of range, and when Pika's around, that's not happening. Ampharos V, I rated 2 stars, just really thinking that Telescopic Sight was a better card than it was, I guess, is the best way to put this. I was just trying to give myself a safety net that Telescopic Sight was going to work somewhere, but where was that place? Was it going to be Salamence VMAX? Was it going to be Ampharos? Was it going to be like Darmanitan and what's it called? Sandslash? I just kind of didn't know. I thought Telescopic Sight was so much value for spread specifically that there was going to be a chance for this, but the Ampharos was still too expensive to attack with, still a little bit awkward to be a fighting type, and just had low hit points in general. And it's hard to be a spread-based deck that wants to, extend the game for a number of turns to milk that spread value when there's an ADP in the format. So, yeah, we will bump Ampharos down to the 1 star. I don't know why I trusted this so much, but I thought Lightning had enough to make any deck work. Not this one, apparently. So, yeah. Electrode, we rated 3 stars. We will bump this down to 1 star. I think there was some, greens-based Raichu decks that tried to play this. And you do actually get Levelable now, which maybe makes that a little bit easier if you are trying to make a greens-based sort of package with acceleration. And I know in Battle Styles there is Coco VMAX, which may be trying to use the same package again, where you have Electrode and you have Omastar to try and para-lock things. So maybe a small home there, but for now we will drop it down to 1 star because even the greens-based Choo-Choo Stamp deck wasn't strong enough. And Boltund, even with EXP shares now in the format, probably isn't going to be enough of a core of a deck to go Axew, EXP share, Electrode, Boltund. I still think that's going to be too low of a damage cap compared to just using Pikarom and electrifying and that sort of stuff. So yeah, drop it down now, knowing that Coco is maybe the only way that this will see a resurgence. Jolteon, obviously terrible, and Frostmoth never saw enough play in the format. Just be Pikarom if you want to have a good water matchup. Manectric is a 1 star, and this is foreshadowing for the Golbat and Crobat potentially that we're seeing in the future, because Golbat evolves and draws 2, Crobat evolves and draws 3, and also has free retreat, which is the same traits that Manectric essentially has, but with more steps. So yeah, I'm expecting those to not be that great. We move on to Pikachu V and VMAX. Surprisingly, again, so I guess I did the same thing for Ampharos as I did for Pikachu. I said there's enough in the Lightning decks to at least be consistent and at least get into play that they will see a bit of fun and experimentation, but that wasn't even the case. So we'll drop these both down to 1 star. There is a potential backdoor for Pikachu VMAX in that we get Kricketune V, which makes Rose engines potentially easier than when they had to use Silvally. So, random chance that Rose Chew works? Probably not. We'll keep it at 1 star. Raikou, I don't know why I believed. 120 and 120. We're going to see the power of that attack in the next set with the Rapid Strike Urshifu, but it's too much work for Raikou, unfortunately. Zapdos, yeah, obvious 1 star, no place for his great sniping attack. Alakazam V, obvious 1 star meme. Alcremie, also meme. Banette, we rated 3 stars. Man, we were believers. I believed in evolving. I never do that. That's insane. Okay, well, there are more VMAXs coming in, so maybe there's one of those things where Banette slowly makes itself a place in the format, probably post-rotation era when everything is evolving, literally, or when, it's just V into V fights. And I think that's why this deck never came about, the Zacian deck never came about, the Zacian Banette, which was why I gave it such a high rating, by the way, because ADP Zacian was still top dog, and that hasn't changed, and Pikarom is also top dog. So although you can improve your Senti matchup and stuff like that by having Banette in, there's other ways that you can try and navigate those matchups for Zacian ADP, or just any Zacian variant. Going ADP route or going Luke Metal route with tanking and coatings both have higher win rates than just using Banette to pick up their Center Scorch. And in fairness, the spread decks also didn't work out as we thought, so those were all things to bear in mind why this was rated maybe slightly higher. See, this was meant to be the finisher before, just before using Spiky Storm GX, but that was the 4th stage 1 and in a deck that already needed a ton of acceleration and all that other stuff. So way too dreamer believer for me. We'll drop it down to that 1 star. And yes, there's more evolution stuff coming in, but I still think it's passive, and there's more healing in the format as well. with Cheryl, so anything trying to set up damage could get removed now, so Banette down to that 1-star. Dusknoir 1-star. Its effectiveness becomes better with Rapid Strike energy, potentially, just seeing it as it is now. That could be a hilarious wall for someone if they're trying to use Rapid Strike energies. Fun times. It also denies Single Strike energy as well. Huh, Dusknoir day 1 meta? Let's go. We'll still rate it 1-star though. Whimsicott, we rated 3 stars. I'm pretty happy about this. It did end up being less powerful than Mad Party in the end, but I'm glad that we sort of saw the deck and how it could have been built. One big thing that we missed was just the utility of Arden Challenge Amulet to allow you to be aggressive in your early game draw with the Dene, and letting an Oricorio sit on board without that same downside. And sometimes even it was Silvally GX that sat on board with that tool attached as well. The main reason why, I remember why I didn't want Island Challenge Amulet, because I was thinking I always want to do maximum damage output, but you don't always need to do maximum damage output when you're two-shotting VMAXs anyway. And I think going forward, Psychic type coverage is very good. This also gets level ball as well. So a few new treats in there to think about for Whimsicott. I do think, yeah, having a decent Urshifu isn't going to be a bad thing for you, obviously. So yeah, some bright future for Whimsy. Probably stays around that sort of tier. Well, right now it's like tier 3 at best, and it still competes probably unfavorably into Mad Party. It's probably actually not that bad against Mad Party, just because you can chain your attackers against each other fairly well, and you have the option to Gust probably just as much as they do, because they never play tool removal, right? So you can get their 2 prizes more often. Yeah, so maybe this is actually kind of okay. You also get the new Mimikyu V that you could potentially use as a one-of in this deck, because you naturally play Psychic Energies. So yeah, Tool Drop Whimsy might be making a small resurgence. You never know. Woobat, 1-star fun card. Zacian, I don't know why we believed that the Trumbeak patch or any of these engines were going to work. They were extremely glamorous cards. And anyone feeling glamorous about the new amazing rares that have come out of Shining Fates, I mean, there's not a good history for these sorts of cards. So anyone trying to build those, you dreamers, and I love you. But yeah, we'll rate this 1-star. Colossal VMAX, we rated 3 stars. I still believe 3 is kind of fair. I don't think this is a good enough card to rate 4-star, because its win rate isn't actually that high into a lot of matchups. It was kind of just one of these things that could be like, haha, Pikarom, I finally found you, you know? Like, that's it. There are some other like good selling points, but this still had a very poor Centiskorch and a very poor Luke Metal matchup. Wasn't even favored against ADP either, I don't think. So it was really just trying to be picking on Eternatus and Pikarom, which at the moment in the format isn't the worst place to be sat. So I think Colossal is still just popular enough to be that sort of tier 2.5 kind of archetype. It will kind of get pushed to the back, I think, by both Urshis. Colossal VMAX potentially, because it's weak to Grass compared to being weak to Psychic, could still be in the meta to an extent, but I don't think it's that good into either Urshifu matchup, and gets there's like extra hate in there for him as well. So I think Colossal probably going to see less play now that we have better fighting cards out there, but has served a decent role in the format overall, and was pretty simple and effective at what it was trying to do. Actually, one good thing it might be getting is it could be an abuser of Cheryl, because it just has 1 energy attach attack style options. Obviously, Cheryl is getting rid of 2 energies, which is a bit awkward. Or will you try and do like Surf Fetched into Cheryl the bench kind of thing? Maybe there's some plays there for Colossal. Being a tanky dude isn't a bad thing in a Cheryl world, so maybe keep to that 3-star range. Donphan, we rated 3 stars. I'm going to drop this down to 1-star. It did see a flash in the pan, really, for Don Tomb, and there were a couple tournament results for it, but nothing consistent, and that's pretty much just the problem for the deck. Trying to set up multiple stage 1s and just have a board full of Spiritombs and Jinx was never that easy. And its type covering was pretty good, but it gets, you know, as there are better fighting stuff now, you'd want to be playing those instead. Galarian Surf Fetch we need to raise up to 3 stars, because it was pretty much guaranteed in to be in Colossal. I actually made that mistake, because you can see on the slide I was thinking people were going to experiment by having basically a Tapu Koko style deck where you're just jumping between your Surf Fetch kind of thing, getting into your next 4-star or whatever it is every turn with like Turbo Patches and Toughness Capes to stay out of range alongside stacking Stone Fighting Energies onto them. Whereas really its home just became a 1/2 of in Colossal. And going forward, I think that will remain the case. I don't think it's going to be a good enough card to put into Rapid or Single Strike, seeing as though they have to use their specific energies, which Sirfetch can't yoink for himself, or he can and they discard, which you don't really want. So it probably goes down in play just because Colossal will probably go down in play, but the card is decent. Zamazenta has to go down to 1 star. Drapion, obvious 1 star. Garbodor, 1 star, correct. I think a lot of people were rating this as being part of the Whimsicott deck, and I'm glad I identified that they were separate entities. So that was the only really note there. Aegislash V and VMAX. The 4-star rating was for the regular V. Don't get carried away, guys. And turns out I'm going to put it down to the 3-star. I think this was a great card to have in the game, just to be like, hey, if you've been annoyed by Decidueye, put it in and just sleep easy, you know? But now a lot of ADPs have chosen not to play it. A lot of Luke Metals don't play this either, and they just sort of shrug and have found other ways, or tried to, you know, having like double Mawile instead of 1 Aegislash, 1 Mawile, those sorts of things. And the VMAX never really saw much play. I remember building the fun Snorlax build of Aegislash after seeing the Orbeetle build, and I played with that for a couple of weeks, but yeah, never to great success. It was just a fun deck to play. And yeah, the VMAX, there's not much reason to think about the VMAX outside of Bronzong now. There's Bronzong and Cheryl. I do think Corviknight fits that role a lot better, so that's something to bear in mind. I will bump, Aegislash V down to a 3-star, and the VMAX can just kind of go in the bulk pile, I guess. Or you can use this card if you don't want to play Corviknight for whatever reason. The upside of Aegislash is that he gets really, really good towards the late game. So possibly if you're using early Zacian attacks and then going into the Aegislash to be that finisher, could see a home compared to that Corviknight, but I think that free retreat is just too valuable, personally. Duraludon, obvious. Fortress, obvious. Galarian Berserker, obvious. Jirachi, amazing rare. I think we overrated at 4 stars. I think it's one of those things where it's like, you have to look at card draw in general and just think, it's so versatile that it could go into so much, but then it just actually was below the bar in a lot of occasions. Stellar Wish is only really played in Blounds and has been phased out of most other decks, I want to say. And Jirachi Amazing Rare is kind of in that same camp and competes with Stellar Wish, which is a problem for it. It only really solidified a place in Colossal, I want to say, as like a 1/2 of. Don't think it's in much else. So we'll bump it down to 3 stars. It's still versatile. It still has a ton of opportunity. One thing I will say is there's now competition from Celebi and from Manaphy from the new set, Shining Fates, which can look at the top 6 and either find an energy for Celebi or a Pokemon for the Manaphy, and those are arguably, I want to say, higher priority than Jirachi, unless you have synergy with like Colossal and stuff like that. So a small couple of bits there. So yeah, Jirachi Amazing Rare. You don't have to panic and buy all these cards because they're super expensive, these Amazing Rares. Magina 1 star, Steelix 1 star, Exploud 1 star, Lugia 1 star, Rayquaza 1 star, Snorlax. Okay, we rated this 2 stars. We kept Orbeetle at 2, right? So I guess we're keeping Snorlax at 2. Actually, that's wrong, because Snorlax is also played in Sanders' control deck. And is it played in anything else? It's played in like enough random 1-prize decks that just sort of put it into play. Okay, so I'll bump Snorlax up to 3 stars, I think. I think that's a fair place for him. I'm glad that I have, obviously Tropical Beach is the obvious throwback, but it competes with Zacian for Intrepid Sorting to end your turn, and I know a lot of like Blounds, for example, would prefer to have Zacian in play than have Snorlax in play because they want to use Stellar Wish anyway all the time, the Blounds, and that'll still be the case for maybe like the new ball juggling deck with the Galarian Mr. Rhyme. You'll probably have Zacian over Snorlax, more than likely, and then have something else sat in the active, be it a Pokemon Searcher like the Manaphy, or just have Stellar Wish yourself, so you can grab ball guys and stuff like that. So there is some stiff competition for like ending your turn effects, but Snorlax is like just good enough for those sorts of things, and because he's a 1-prizer, he allows you to do that prize skew where you give up a couple, you have dolls, and you still have a VMAX or two to go through. So, yeah, I think he does fit that niche well, and we'll give him that 3-star treatment for that exact reason. Because ADP is still around, the Snorlax doll plus VMAX like combo is still quite weak. But maybe post-row, that engine will be much more of an engine. At the same time, we lose dolls at that point, but we'll get to that. Togekiss V and VMAX is more scary and expanded than standard, that's for sure. The combos that are on screen are just too hard to reach, and it's Marnie meta, so both 1-star. Trumbeak, yeah, you're not Elixir, get out of here, 1-star. And that's it. Overall, I think mostly we were bumping down from bumping up, so that shows you just how poor of a set Vivid Voltage really was. I think we gave a lot of cards sort of like pity 2s, just so that we weren't giving everything in this set 1-star, because man, we could have been negative Nellies on this set for sure. Looking back on the trainers, I think the only thing that we were super wrong on was Telescopic Sight is far worse than we thought. And the Aromatic is more usable than expected. For Pokemon, I think we're pretty close. A couple of things that we've jumped up and down here. I was just like, I kind of pitied too many cards, right? We pitied a lot of the amazing rares. We said people would try out the Pikachu, the Ampharos, the Barraskewda Cram kind of thing. Yeah, when really they're all just garbage. And there wasn't enough change in the format to derail the top decks that were already established. So the very successful Pikaroms, the very successful ADPs, Eternas, and Sentis didn't have to adapt to much in the set, so there wasn't actually much change in the meta despite the entrance of Colossal. That was really the only big impact from this set in reality. So ultimately, very poor set. I look forward to Battle Styles, where we'll be giving more cards more than 1-star. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Like I said, if you do want to get involved in the community ratings, it really does help out the video. Give us some scope. Lets me see that when I'm overrating a card, was it because everyone was in that same thought bubble, or was it a mistake that we made personally? And I think overall, we are usually far more accurate than the community on average, so it's definitely worth giving us a listen. Thanks so much for watching, and the Battle Styles set review will be coming to you guys soon. Cheers.